So the S24 Ultra just came out, and I wanted to go through and show you the pros and cons of this device, and also maybe compare it a little bit to the S23 Ultra and see if it's worth an upgrade. Something I'm excited for is that they now changed from that glossy aluminum finish on the S23 Ultra to a titanium matte finish on the S24 Ultra. Also, I'm realizing I'm gonna have to say their names a lot in this video, so I'm gonna just call this one the 23 and the 24. And as far as the battery goes, the 23 had 4,855 milliamps of battery, and the 24 improved it slightly by going up to 5,000. They kept the same charging speed for the new phone, so it charges at 45 watts on wired and 25 watts on wireless. Another thing that they talked about is that they increased the vapor chamber from this phone to this phone by 90%. So if you like gaming on your phone and maybe your phone gets a bit hot, this is gonna help. I've noticed that this phone doesn't really get hot that much, so I'm imagining this is gonna be much better. And who knows, maybe now with the newer processor and the more powerful phones coming out nowadays, maybe they could put better, more graphically demanding games on here. Kind of like what Apple was doing with Resident Evil on the new iPhone. Same thing. I would like to see that here. And lastly, on this phone, they improved the haptics. Usually Apple is known for the best haptics in any phone. Going back and forth between an iPhone and the S23 Ultra, you feel like the S23 Ultra is nowhere near as good when it comes to haptics. And I would say the S24 is getting close. It's not there yet, but it's close. iPhone definitely has them beat for that. So what about the thing that most people actually care about? The cameras. And I feel like I can't really draw a full picture for you about the cameras without first explaining the display, because a lot of features of the display help make the camera the best it can possibly be. So first off, and the biggest change that most people would notice, is that now the display, instead of being curved like on the S23, they made it flat. To be honest, I thought I wouldn't like that as much because I tend to like the curved displays, but when I actually saw it in person, it feels very solid. Because it feels like it's still curved because the sides are curved, they're not flat, but at the same time you get the benefits of a flat display, so I feel like it's an overall really good package. And the phone kind of feels more solid to me, just because it feels like having a flat display made them be able to have a bigger metallic area on the side, because if you compare it to the S23 Ultra, you see that the screen itself takes a bit of that, so you have a thinner rail on the side, where this one is actually bigger. So the phone itself feels more solid, feels nice to hold. Also, if you stand both phones on a desk, you'll notice that the S24 is ever so slightly shorter, just because they shrunk the bezel on the bottom right here, and they kept the same size of the display. And honestly, that border that they shaved from the bottom is not that big of a difference, but it looks better because now it feels like the whole screen has the same exact size of borders all around, especially now that you don't see curves on the sides. So all borders look the same, and it feels like the phone actually looks like you're looking through a frame. And the screen feels like it looks slightly bigger just because the display is not curved around the sides, but that's not a big difference that I would say you should upgrade your phone for. Another thing is that this phone gets very, very dim if you want it to be, and it can get very bright to where you'll never find a situation where you can't see the screen because of the sun or the light or whatever. So this is the part that I feel like ties a lot into the camera. So first off, if you're shooting videos or pictures outside, there's no way you can't see the display from the sun hitting the screen or anything like that, just because it's so bright. It's hard to find a natural source of light that would overwhelm it. And the second thing that I also think would be very useful when it comes to the cameras is that now they have a coating on the display that makes it reflect less light. As you can see, this is the old one right here, and this is the new one. If I reflect the same source of light on both phones, you see how much darker it looks on the 24? That's because they have a new coating on the display that makes it reflect less light. So if I turn up the brightness on both phones and I reflect that same light, you see how much you could see it on the old phone compared to the new phone? I think this is actually a very nice thing, and at the same time it doesn't feel like it's a matte display where you can't really see through it very well. Some matte displays look a bit blurry, but this looks gorgeous like any Samsung phone you would have seen before, but at the same time you could see the display better because you don't have streaks of light or anything like that. Alright, so now that you know about the display and how much that improves the cameras, let's jump into the camera. So you've probably seen it all over before. When the S23 Ultra came out, they were boasting about the 10x zoom, and their phone had a setup of a 1x, a 3x, and a 10x telephoto, so that way you could be able to zoom very far and all that stuff. In the new one, I think they took a step back and they actually bumped down the 10x into a 5x, so that way when you go from 1 to 3 to 5, it doesn't feel as jarring as going from 3 to 10. But at the same time, they increased the megapixels of that 5x camera all the way up to 50. So they mentioned how that would actually make it look better. Even though you can zoom from 5 all the way to 100, they said that that would improve it. In my opinion, it felt like, they're kind of reaching. They both kind of look very similar, and the 10x even sometimes looks better on the S23 Ultra than the S24. It felt like the S24 looked really good up to a certain point, and then after that, The 24 tends to add a lot more processing to try and make up for that difference. Another thing that they did, and it was a nice improvement, and I actually like that a lot, is that they improved the shutter speed or the processing speed on taking photos. So if you're snapping photos very quickly with both phones, the S23 Ultra will feel like it lags behind the 24. And that's always been an issue with all Samsung phones, where they just need to take a moment to process in between every photo, as compared to the S24 where it just flies through them. So I'd say that's definitely a welcome change. What I noticed was that when I was taking the photos on the phone itself, on the S24, it looked like there was less noise. It looked like the picture was clearer. In my opinion, I think it's an improvement. Not that big of a leap, it's just a tiny improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. And now we finally get to the last section, AI. Honestly, this is the part about the phone that I was excited about the most, because everything else so far felt to me like it was very little incremental changes here and there, nothing groundbreaking. But the AI stuff, on the other hand, I thought was really cool in my opinion. So first up, now there's a remaster button. Sometimes when you take a photo, you'll see an AI remaster button, and when you tap on it, the phone will automatically remaster the image for you. I found that that works pretty well most of the time, and I think it's neat to have. Another one that was really cool that they added was reflection erasing. I feel like this one is not really going to come in handy a lot, because how often do you take a picture where you see a reflection in the background? But it's there if you want it, where it would basically just erase reflections with the tap of a button. Something else that I thought was really cool that they added, and they kind of cheated off of iPhone to be honest, but it's good to have nonetheless, is that if you take a picture like this, you can just tap and hold on it, and it will automatically scan for anything it can take out of the photo, and now it would just automatically cut out the subject for you out of the picture, so you don't need to do editing or whatever. And this way you could actually save that subject only as a photo, or you can just send it to somebody or make it into a sticker. They pretty much copied Apple's homework. And that doesn't only apply to people, you can actually cut out like objects. If you took pictures of, like, let's say your iPhone or your AirPods, you can just cut out that just by tapping and holding like that, and it's pretty good at detecting everything. They also added something that's called Magic Editor, which I think is really cool in my opinion. This is one of the best things that they added in the new phone, and that would be if you take the same photo and you hit the edit button on the bottom right here, it'll take it into the normal editor, but you have that AI button on the bottom. If you tap on that one, then now you're in the Magic Editor, where basically you can like tap and hold, it will scan the photo, and as you can see, it gives you some options. I can just erase this subject if I don't want to be in the picture, and if I hit generate, it should fill in my location. It takes a second to just process, and there we go. It just auto-filled that whole thing behind me. It doesn't look super realistic. I mean, it didn't know what was behind me, but it just filled it with black to match the rest, which I think is really cool. But you know, it's not perfect, but I would be pretty happy with that. So I just discarded the change, so we went back to the normal image. I can move the subject over to the side. So let's say I just didn't want to be in the middle, I want to be right here. I'll hit generate, and this feature is called move and fill, where it would basically just move the subject and fill in its location, whatever would make the whole picture whole. And there you go, it tried to fill in my location where it moved me from. You could view the original image if you want, but as you can see, it's not always perfect. So in this case, if you look at my arm right here, for some reason it gave me a lot of hair. I have a hairy arm now. But that doesn't mean that it's always bad. For example, if I redo the process and I move the subject to the same location as before, it will try a different thing. The whole thing about this is that it's AI, and it's always trying to make it look as best as possible. And as you can see on this one actually looks pretty good. I'd be happy taking something like this. It looks realistic, nothing looks out of place. So yeah, I would like this photo, and you could see the original versus the new. Here's another photo that I took. It's just a couple of pots and plants. So let's try the same thing on it. I'm gonna hit the edit button, AI, and now that we're in the Magic Editor, I can just go in, and let's say I want it to scan. See, it just selected the pot on its own. It's really smart about finding objects. Let's say I want this pot to be on this side, and then I'm gonna hit generate. It's gonna think for a bit, and there we go. As you can see, it put the pot on this side, and it kind of auto-filled in its place, and it looks pretty realistic. So you could see the difference right before and after right there. It actually put an entire new pot right there. So you can always experiment, and it will always give you different results, so you can find whatever you like best. Next up, they also announced a new feature, a part of the new AI features, where it can fix the tilted images. Normally, if you have a picture like this and you wanted to fix it if it was tilted or so, and you tilt it this way or that way, you'll see that it's cropping some parts of the image on the top and the bottom. So you'll be losing a lot of details, and the picture is gonna end up looking smaller. But now with the new Magic Editor, you hit edit, you go to the new Magic Editor, and then after that, let's say I want to tilt it this way. As you can see, all of this is being cut off. Normally, that's what would happen at least. Now we're gonna hit generate, and it should autofill in all of these empty locations, whatever it thinks looks best to make the image look natural. And there we go. As you can see, it put more panels on the top, it brought the rest of the ceiling, it brought a little bit of a table, and it added more to my arm and more to my bottom half. It's really cool, actually. I think this feature is very helpful and it can help fix a lot of images. Here's another tilted one that I took outside. I tried to give it a little bit of a challenge. So as you can see, there's a fence and it's sideways, and there's a tree as well that it's sideways. Let's say we wanted to keep everything upright as if this picture was taken correctly. We go back in here. I'll make it all the way to the sides. So this is as much as it will let me tilt it. So it's almost straight. Let's hit generate, and there we go. It added more trees and bushes on the side, and it continued the parts that were missing from the fence. And honestly, this photo looks very realistic right now. And here's the before and after. Another cool feature that is also part of that Magic Editor is if you hit edit, you go to Magic Editor, and it tells you that you can circle something. Let's say, for example, that I don't like that I have a microphone showing on me. I can just circle it. It'll auto-detect what it is that you're trying to take out. And then basically it would allow me to move it to a different place if I want, or I can just hit that delete button. And then I will hit generate, and there we go. It took a couple seconds to think about it, but as you can see right now, the microphone is gone, and it made it look like my shirt was a little bit creased or something. But you could see the before and after right there. It's not always perfect. Sometimes you would want to do it like 2 or 3 times before it gets something that you would like, but I think most of the time it does a pretty good job. Another really cool feature that they added that I think would be pretty neat is that if you like to take notes on your phone, let's pretend that these are my notes. I'm gonna just copy all of this right out of Google. Hit copy, and then I'm going to go over to the notes app, and then I'll just paste it here to pretend like these are my notes. You'll see that now you have that new magic button or that AI button, and basically if you tap on it, it'll give you a couple of options. You can have it basically correct your spelling. Well, it will just scan everything and it'll give you suggestions of what you can correct. You can just hit replace and it'll just replace everything for you. Or you can basically translate, or you can summarize or auto format. But the feature that I like the most is the summarize one, where basically if you tap on it, it will go through and it will summarize all of this into just that specific area. So I can just say that, yes, I would like to use this, replace, and there you go. It summarized that first page into just this. So I can keep going and then just do it on more stuff, summarize, and there you go. It summarized the whole thing, and it just cut down all those pages into just this area. I think that feature is pretty helpful, honestly, and it would help me use my notes more because usually it's a mess, which turns me off from using it. Another thing that's pretty cool is that now that note that you just took, if you just tap and hold on it and then you hit more, you can generate cover, where it would basically just make a cover. It looks kind of like a book. And when you have more notes, they will have different covers as well. So I can generate one for this one too. And as you can see, so if you have a bunch, you can tell them apart and it would look much cleaner than it normally does. And another great feature that they added is that now whatever picture you take, as you can see, I took this photo and it looks normal. You can see everything behind me is clear. If you just tap on the photo and then you hit the eye icon on the bottom to give you the information, you'll see that it gives you 2 options right here. One of them is the background blur and the other one is remaster. If you tap on background blur, even this picture didn't have a blur to begin with. As you can see right now, everything behind is blurred, and it gives you down here options to blur the background even more if you would like, or blur it completely. And it does such a good job that it's seriously impressive. You can see right here, clear, blurry. You don't see any issues with the edges around my shirt or my hair. Everything looks pretty good. The other one is that remaster button. So if we tap on this one, it goes through, scans the photo and sees what it can improve. And then it gives you a remastered image. So as you can see, it gives you that before and after. It thought that my face was a little bit too dark, so it brightened up the scene. I feel like this is a bit overexposed, but the whole point of this is that this is made for older photos, not really newer photos like this. It can breathe life into some older photos and make them look good. And it even sees like some aspects of the photo. So at the bottom, you see it highlighted my face. So if you tap on it, it will just zoom in on my face to just show you that before and after just for that part. A couple of other things that I didn't really get into is that they also added circle to search, which basically they took from Google, where you can circle anything on your phone, whether it be an app or a picture that you have or something in a picture, and it will automatically scan the internet and try to find that thing for you. I haven't had the best luck with those. Usually it would try and find something similar, but most of the time it doesn't find that exact thing unless it's something super popular, like you took a picture of an iPhone. But if you took a picture of like a shirt or something like that, it'll be hit or miss because, you know, there's a lot of shirts. It's hard to find a specific one. But now we move on to the cons. So the biggest con for me is that all of those new features that they talked about with all the AI stuff, all of that will be gone on 2025 because it will be moved to a payment plan. These features don't just come with the phone because they want you to pay for that stuff because it uses a lot of processing on their servers. So they have costs that they basically need to fulfill by taking money from us. And honestly, with how expensive these phones are nowadays, I feel like these should come included and not something that we're paying for out of pocket, especially that the phones now, like one of these phones is about $1,300. I feel like that should be baked in because without that AI stuff, if you were asking me today, would you upgrade from the 23 to the 24 if those features are not included since you're gonna have to pay for them, I would definitely say no. Because everything else, from the cameras to the hardware to the screen, there's barely any difference. They basically made very tiny changes here and there, but it doesn't add up to a new big change for me that I would want to upgrade. But if the AI stuff was included and it only came to that phone, then maybe. However, they did say that those features will also come to the 23 later in the year, but then again, you're gonna have to pay for them. And honestly, I don't think that AI payment stuff is gonna last long, because I know that other companies are always trying to compete in the market, especially that there's a lot of phone companies trying to stay in this business. So a couple of them will probably start offering their AI features for free. So I'm assuming that Samsung will also eventually make theirs for free with some newer phone version, because I don't think it's a good idea to buy a $1,300 phone and then pay a subscription on top of that too. So final thoughts, should you upgrade from the 23 to the 24? No. If you have something a bit older, maybe the 22 or the 21, maybe. The Samsung S24 Ultra is the best in class. So whatever phone you upgrade from, you're not gonna go wrong with this one. Only thing that you need to just think about is, do you need an upgrade right now? If so, you'll never go wrong with this phone. But if you have like the S23 Ultra, I'll tell you hold off another year, because you won't feel that big of a difference. And with that, I hope you learned something new. Drop any questions that you have. Subscribe. Peace.